The silence in Dr. Evans' office was heavy, suffocating. My husband, Mark, shifted in his chair, a bored smirk playing on his lips, as if this were all a massive inconvenience. Just moments before, he had scoffed, telling me that our daughter Lily's physical therapy was a bottomless pit for his hard-earned money. He didn't notice the single sealed envelope I slid across the polished mahogany desk toward the doctor. He didn't understand the look of profound pity in Dr. Evans's eyes, a look directed not at me or our sick daughter, but squarely at him. I let the silence hang for another second before I broke it. "Mark," I said, my voice steady and cold, a mirror of the ice that had formed around my heart. "The specialist's final results are in. They're not for Lily. They're for you." He had laughed when our daughter needed a new experimental treatment, calling it a waste of time and money. But his own life now depended on the very fortune he so jealously guarded from his own child. You're probably wondering how a father could be so cruel, so detached from his own daughter's suffering. To understand the monster he became, you have to understand the man I thought I married and the secrets he kept buried. Our story didn't start with hatred. It started, like most, with love and promise. Mark was charismatic, ambitious, and successful. He painted a future for us that was secure and beautiful. When our daughter Lily was born, I thought our family was complete. For the first few years, everything was perfect. But when Lily turned 6, she started having trouble. At first, it was small things, stumbling more than other kids, complaining that her legs were tired. We took her to doctor after doctor, each one running tests, shrugging their shoulders, and sending us to another specialist. The medical bills began to pile up, a mountain of paper that represented our growing fear. Mark, who once doted on Lily, grew distant. His concern wasn't for her health, but for the health of our bank account. "It's just growing pains," he'd snap whenever a new bill arrived. "You're letting these doctors fleece us." He stopped coming to her appointments, claiming he was too busy with work. In reality, he couldn't stand to see the evidence of our problem in front of him. Lily wasn't his perfect daughter anymore. She was a financial drain, a flaw in his perfect life. The breaking point came on a Tuesday. Dr. Miller, Lily's pediatric neurologist, called me with a glimmer of hope. A new type of dynamic orthotic brace had shown incredible results in children with similar undiagnosed neuromuscular conditions. It wouldn't be a cure, but it could help her walk without the constant fear of falling and potentially slow the progression of her muscle weakness. The price was steep, $5,000, not covered by our insurance. I approached Mark that evening, my hands trembling as I held the brochure. I laid out the doctor's explanation, the potential benefits, the sheer hope in my voice. He didn't even look up from his laptop, where he was browsing for a new set of custom golf clubs. $5,000 for a maybe? He scoffed. Absolutely not. We're not throwing more money down this black hole. She can manage with the cheap ones we already got her. My blood ran cold. The cheap ones were standard issue supports that chafed her skin and offered little real stability. "Mark, this could change her life," I pleaded, my voice cracking. "It could give her a piece of her childhood back." He finally looked at me, his eyes devoid of any warmth. "Her childhood? Her childhood is costing me my future. Every dollar we spend on her is a dollar I can't invest. We have to be realistic, Sarah. Some things just can't be fixed." The next day, a package arrived. It was his new golf clubs. They cost $6,000. That was the moment I stopped seeing him as my husband. He was no longer a partner, no longer the man I loved. He was an obstacle, an adversary living in my house, sleeping in my bed, and actively working against the well-being of our child. That night, as he slept soundly, I went into his home office. For years, he'd handled all the finances, priding himself on his investment acumen. I was just the stay-at-home mom who didn't understand the complexities of the market. But I wasn't stupid. I was just trusting. A trust he had now shattered. I started digging, and it didn't take long to find that our finances were not as tight as he claimed. He had personal investment accounts I never knew existed, filled with money he was hiding from his own family. As I sat there in the dark, the faint glow of the monitor illuminating my tear-streaked face, a new kind of resolve hardened within me. He wanted to be realistic? Fine. I would be realistic too. And I started noticing other things, small details I'd previously dismissed. The way he'd started complaining of blinding headaches after his golf games, the slight tremor in his hand when he lifted his coffee cup, his increasing irritability. He chalked it up to stress. I started to suspect it was something else entirely. While Mark was out on the golf course, I started a new file on my computer, password protected and buried deep. In it, I began a log. April 12th. Complained of a migraine after a 2-hour meeting. Took 3 extra-strength painkillers. Later, couldn't remember the name of his new client. April 17th. Hand trembled so much he spilled coffee on a financial report. Blamed it on too much caffeine. April 25th. Fell asleep at the dinner table mid-sentence. Woke up confused, insisted he was just tired. Each entry was a small, cold stone I placed on the scale of justice. While he meticulously tracked every dollar spent on Lily, I meticulously tracked the decay of his own body. He was so consumed by his wealth that he was blind to his own failing health. The irony was almost poetic. My late-night sessions in his office became a ritual. I wasn't just looking anymore, I was acting. I used a portable scanner to make digital copies of every statement from his secret accounts, every stock certificate, every deed to properties I never knew he'd bought. The numbers were staggering. He wasn't just well off, he was wealthy. The $5,000 for Lily's braces was less than the interest he earned in a single day. The rage I felt was no longer hot and explosive, but a cold, dense weight in my chest. It fueled me, sharpened my focus. I consulted with a financial planner, pretending to be a widow sorting out her late husband's complex estate. Step by step, I learned how to untangle his web of assets. Getting him to a doctor was the final piece of the puzzle. A direct confrontation was useless. His ego was an impenetrable fortress. So I used the one language he understood: money. One evening, I sat him down with a brochure for a new life insurance policy. "Mark," I said, my voice carefully neutral, "I've been thinking about the future. With Lily's ongoing needs, we have to be practical. Our current policy is inadequate. This new one offers a much higher payout, but it requires a full physical for both of us. It's just a formality, a box to check." I saw the flicker of greed in his eyes. A bigger payout, protecting his assets. He saw it as a smart financial move. He never once considered that the physical might actually find something wrong with him. He was, in his own mind, invincible. "Fine," he said, waving a dismissive hand. "Set it up." As long as it doesn't take too long, I made the appointment with Dr. Evans, a top diagnostician I had researched for weeks. I made sure to schedule a private consultation with the doctor beforehand to share my log of Mark's symptoms. The trap was set. All he had to do was walk into it. The day of the physical, Mark was in a foul mood. He complained about the time it was taking away from a critical conference call and made a point of sighing dramatically in the waiting room. "Let's get this farce over with," he muttered to me, loud enough for the receptionist to hear. "Some of us have actual work to do." During the examination, he tried to charm Dr. Evans, cracking jokes and boasting about his rigorous workout schedule. But Dr. Evans was impassive, his face a mask of professional focus. He watched Mark intently, guiding him through a series of neurological tests. He made him walk a straight line, touch his finger to his nose, and hold his hands outstretched. I saw it then, clear as day under the fluorescent lights. The faint, almost imperceptible tremor in his right hand. The same tremor he'd always blamed on coffee. Dr. Evans saw it too. His expression never changed, but his gaze sharpened. After the initial exam, Dr. Evans told us he wanted to run a few more tests, an MRI and a comprehensive blood panel. Is all this really necessary? Mark grumbled, already pulling out his phone. This is going to cost a fortune. I looked him dead in the eye. It's already been approved by the insurance company for the policy, I lied smoothly. It's all part of the premium package. Don't worry, I've taken care of it. I had, in fact, paid for it myself using a large withdrawal from our joint checking account. It was the first time in years I had spent that much money without his permission, and the small act of rebellion felt like a deep, satisfying breath. He simply grunted, appeased that it wasn't coming from his precious investment funds. A week later, we were back in that silent, sterile office. The smugness had returned to Mark's face, his brief brush with medical scrutiny forgotten. While we waited for the doctor, he brought up Lily's braces again. I was thinking, he began, his voice laced with condescension. We really need to cut back on these frivolous expenses. That physical therapy is a waste of money. It was the same speech, the same cold dismissal of his daughter's pain. He was so predictable, so wrapped up in his own world, he couldn't see the cliff edge he was standing on. That's when Dr. Evans entered the room, his face grim. He sat down heavily behind his desk. Mark opened his mouth probably to make another joke, but I spoke first, my voice cutting through the tension. I slid the single sealed envelope across the desk. It landed with a soft, definitive thud. Mark, I said, locking his gaze with mine. The specialist's final results are in. They're not for Lily. They're for you. For the first time, his smirk wavered. Confusion clouded his features, followed by the first, faint flicker of fear. Mark stared at me, then at the doctor, a nervous laugh escaping his lips. What is this? Some kind of sick joke? What did you tell him, Sarah? He looked at Dr. Evans. My wife has a flair for the dramatic. I'm perfectly fine, just stressed. Dr. Evans didn't smile. He opened the envelope, took out a sheaf of papers, and looked Mark squarely in the eye. Mr. Collins, the doctor began, his voice grave and steady. Your MRI shows significant lesions in the corticospinal tracts. Your blood work and the results of your neurological exam confirm the initial findings. You have a degenerative motor neuron disease. The clinical words hung in the air, thick and heavy. Mark just shook his head, his face pale. No, that's impossible. I'm 45. I go to the gym 3 times a week. That's an old person's disease. It's rare, but it's not impossible, Dr. Evans said gently. It's progressive. Over time, it will affect your mobility, your fine motor skills, and eventually your speech. There is no cure, but there are treatments to manage the symptoms and slow the progression. Mark's eyes were wide with panic. The invincible man was gone, replaced by a terrified shell. He turned on me, his voice a venomous whisper. You! You did this! You put him up to it! I didn't flinch. I let him rave, let the panic consume him. When he finally ran out of breath, I leaned forward slightly, my voice just as quiet, but sharp as a shard of glass. I did nothing but watch you ignore your own body, the same way you ignored our daughter. I paused, letting the words sink in. The doctor tells me the physical therapy, the specialized equipment, the home modifications. It's all going to be very, very expensive. I looked at his horrified face and twisted the knife. A real bottomless pit for your hard-earned money. We're going to have to be realistic, Mark. After all, some things just can't be fixed. His own cruel words, delivered back to him in that cold, sterile room, finally broke him. The anger drained away, leaving only raw, naked fear. He stared at me, truly seeing me for the first time in years. He wasn't seeing his meek, compliant wife. He was seeing the architect of his new reality. He opened his mouth to say something, but no words came out. It didn't matter. I wasn't finished. And speaking of money, I said, my voice dropping even lower, your hidden investment accounts, the secret properties. I know about all of them, and my lawyer is very interested to see the copies I made. The color drained from Mark's face, leaving a sickly gray pallor. He looked like a statue cracking from the inside out. Dr. Evans, caught in the crossfire of a war he didn't understand, cleared his throat. Mr. Collins, perhaps we should schedule a follow-up to discuss treatment options, support groups, and planning for the future. I stood up, my chair making a soft scraping sound on the floor. Thank you, doctor. Your office can send all the information and bills directly to me. I will be managing my husband's care from now on. The words "my husband" felt foreign, clinical. I was no longer his wife. I was his executor. I turned to Mark, whose eyes were wide and pleading. We're leaving. The car ride home was a symphony of suffocating silence. The man who had always filled every space with his booming voice and arrogant opinions now sat shrunken in the passenger seat, staring out the window at a world that no longer belonged to him. Finally, he spoke, his voice a hoarse whisper. Sarah, I'm sorry. I was wrong. We can fix this. I'll sell some stocks. We'll get Lily the best braces, the best doctors, anything. Please, I kept my eyes fixed on the road. His apology was 10 years too late and born only of his own terror. It was worthless. The time for fixing this is over, Mark, I said, my tone flat. Now is the time for consequences. When we got home, I didn't help him out of the car. I walked inside and waited for him at the kitchen table, the very table where he had so often lectured me on my frivolous spending on groceries or Lily's shoes. He stumbled in after me, his movements suddenly clumsy and uncertain, as if the diagnosis had already begun its relentless work. He sank into a chair opposite me. My lawyer filed for divorce this morning, I began, laying out the new reality like a general briefing his troops. He also filed an emergency injunction to freeze every single one of our assets. All of them, Mark. The ones I knew about, and the secret ones you thought I'd never find. I watched the last bit of hope die in his eyes. The courts will divide them, and here is what I am going to demand. The vast majority of the wealth will be placed into an irrevocable trust for Lily. It will provide for her medical care, her education, and her future, ensuring she never has to depend on anyone ever again. A second, smaller trust will be established for your long-term medical care. You will receive a managed allowance for your personal needs. I will be the sole trustee for both. You will never control a single dollar again. He was a prisoner, not of his disease, but of his own cruelty. He had built the cage himself. Bar by gilded bar. I was just the one who finally locked the door.